Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's video, we're talking about artificial intelligence, and we're taking a look at the AI foundations that power what's known as generative answering, and we'll talk about what that is. It's a really interesting topic. To discuss that, I'm joined by an industry expert. With me is Juanita Ogin, Senior Director of Product Marketing, Platform Solutions at Coveo. Juanita, very good to have you with us today.
Thank you, James. I'm really excited to be here to talk about a very popular topic.
Indeed. Well, can you tell us a bit about what does Coveo do before we get really started? And I know there's a lot of people who are familiar with the company, but what does Coveo do for its clients?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Coveo is a tech company. We've been around since 2005, really trying to help enterprises solve for their toughest information management challenges. We started really focused on unified search. So being able to tap into various systems to surface the most relevant information. And since 2005, we've really innovated along the lines of analytics, NLP, AI, of course, which we'll talk about more today, and really have over 700 different customers, some of the largest enterprises that you can think of that use our technology to power their experiences both internally for employees as well as on their website or digital experiences.
Hmm. Interesting, because I hear so much about AI and search these days, particularly in the area of generative AI. So it's a very current topic. All right. Well, why don't you go ahead and start with your presentation, please?
It is. Thank you. Happy to jump in. And given it's such a popular topic, I thought it would be nice to start with some trending headlines. So I'll give everyone just a minute to take a look at these headlines. And for those of you that are working in and testing GenAI today, which a number of enterprises are, these headlines may not be surprising. They're around whether your organization is data ready, the old saying garbage in, garbage out as it relates to knowledge management and information, right? So a lot of headlines these days are really focused on the need for quality data in order for AI and Gen AI to work. So it feels like we've almost come full circle back to those data and information management challenges.
And it's an interesting point about the importance of quality data, and that we see so many headlines about AI. We don't see quite as many about the importance of data, because, of course, AI goes nowhere without really great data. So it's a key point.
Absolutely. What I wanted to do was kind of double down on that a little bit more and to dive deeper. What I found and find most interesting about kind of the rhetoric these days around AI and Gen AI is it is so data focused. And what we see happening is every major tech vendor trying to race to find an answer to that data management challenges. And we see things like data lakes being proposed or created by technology companies. We see data warehouses or data clouds start to be promoted. RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, emerging and helping AI be more effective, specifically generative AI, and of course, knowledge graphs. And each one of these is very important. I mean, for data lakes, especially if you are processing high volume, have a lot of raw data, that's important to leverage. Data warehouses and clouds, they add a little more structure to that raw data, making it a little bit more usable. And of course, important again for companies dealing with terabytes of this information. And RAG, also a great way to try and bring semantic search and vectors into establishing relationships with information to find the relevant stuff that you should feed to the AI. And then we also see knowledge graphs being promoted. And knowledge graphs, of course, have been around for a while. And I would say they're more explicit versus implicit ways of really identifying what people are looking for. So all of these and each one of them is absolutely critical. But I think the challenge is that these are all really thought about as point solutions independently or being built in siloed environments. And really, companies need to think a little bit more broader and holistically about it. The other view I thought was important to introduce into the conversation was that it's not just all about data. Data is an easy, common, familiar word for us all, but I wanted to bring in an older model, the DIKW model, which stands for data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. And this is, an old organization systems thinking pyramid for helping people understand how you take data, turn it into information that then becomes knowledge, which is wisdom, and helping people, be more proactive or project what's going to happen with all of the information that they're processing on a daily basis. And of course, we all go through this as, on a daily basis in terms of trying to understand the pace of business and change, make sense of the information that's coming our way. Really, we are all knowledge workers working in a knowledge economy, right? And so I think it's important to revisit this model and to understand that in between each one of these, there really is that experience, that judgment, that need to understand context and intent. And of course, there are AI models that are now emerging to help us kind of take the next step, in between each of these layers of processing information. But you're always going to need people. You're always going to need humans, or as they say, humans in the loop, to really process this effectively. So I just want to point out, data is absolutely important, but it's beyond data that we really need to be thinking about as well.
Good point.
And one team and one function that is starting to emerge as part of these big questions around the quality of information that you're feeding into your models is the knowledge management team. So I've talked to and worked with a number of knowledge managers across some of the largest enterprises that you can think of. And I find, especially pre-ChatGPT, pre-Gen AI, they were coming up into some interesting challenges around not getting enough management priority or prioritization on their knowledge management projects, which I found interesting. And also that has now all been, upended with generative AI because, again, garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't have good content and knowledge management practices, your AI and your Gen AI is just not going to be effective. So what I've talked to a number of them about is understanding knowledge management is absolutely critical, but also being realistic with the fact that knowledge management cannot be done at scale without AI or AI search specifically. And so that's what you see here on the screen, James, and for those of you joining us today, are some of the challenges that kind of point out why knowledge managers and enterprises need AI. So if I could just walk through some of these, and James, feel free to stop me at any point for any clarification.
Well, one thing I think is really interesting, the points there, people resources are limited, and then on the other box says people are needed and AI search augments and scales, is that I think some workers are sometimes a little concerned, like, will AI put us out of business? Certainly not. I think people are needed more than ever. In fact, knowledgeable people, experienced people who know what they're doing are in high demand at this point.
Absolutely. And some of the other points in these boxes hopefully get that across as well. For example, we know knowledge management teams are limited in nature. They're often more horizontal roles supporting different departmental functions. We know that enterprises struggle with managing and making sense of information. And we also know that knowledge managers don't always have the domain expertise because they're seen as more horizontal players. So they're bringing best practices, processes, systems, and tools. But the fact of the matter is knowledge management or KM leaders are absolutely needed to help drive standards, set ways for how you process, store, and maybe even retrieve information. And these knowledge managers are going to be working hand in hand with those line of business subject matter experts. For example, you could have a KM leader or KM practice working hand in hand with your sales department. And obviously the knowledge management person is not going to know all of the sales terminology or that domain expertise, but that's why it's a big partnership with the departmental subject matter expert, the knowledge manager, and then the technology, which helps connect all of this and scale in ways that, people can't process terabytes of information on our own, unfortunately. So I wanted to go a little bit deeper into why AI search and why is this the right path or the right set of technology to even consider? Why search in this big Gen AI kind of dialogue and rhetoric? And what we started to see happen mid last year as well, is that the analysts started to, look into the market to try and understand these technologies. And there was a question around what impact generative AI and generative answering was going to have on search, especially if you remember, ChatGPT was its own kind of interface and site that people were going to go to. There were some predictions of death of search, things like that. But what came out and what I'm sure many are seeing today is that there was a direct kind of quote to say search augments AI rather than the reverse. And what that means is that AI needs search and search relevancy in particular to help process, filter, and rank the most relevant information that AI machine is going to act upon, right? So making good data go into the system to have good output, so it's no longer garbage in, garbage out.
I think one of the interesting points about that is, AI does need search, and of course, AI grows over time. The more information that is fed into it, the better it does. So I think it is better in December than it was back in June because of the search input.
Exactly. And there are so many types of AI, which I'll get into some of that is behavioral based, learning based, but not all of it is the same or has the same technique. So it's important to understand what type of AI is being deployed. I did want to just take a minute to talk about the search bar as we know it, because obviously Coveo is an AI search and generative experience platform. So we're dealing with some of the largest organizations that are maybe more familiar with the value or the power of intelligent search, but not everyone shares this sentiment. I mean, we've done third-party tech surveys where practitioners, technical practitioners tell us that they see the value of search, but they really have a hard time getting management to buy into it. I'm assuming, again, with the whole focus on Gen AI and AI, this will change. But I wanted to just take a moment to reframe, why search, why the search bar? And the fact of the matter is, search is so pervasive and so useful in our lives, personally and professionally. Just think of all the times, how much time you spend searching for your research, to find someone, to connect, to learn, to understand. And if you're a company and people are coming to your sites and they're searching, they are looking for something, right? They are telling you something about their intent. The search bar then becomes your opportunity to have a one-to-one conversation with people at scale, and to then be able to guide them, engage with them, make sure they're having a great experience, and also use those insights from that user, the things that they're typing, the content they're engaging with, to continuously improve the experience. And if you're a commerce or a transactional business, that search bar is even more important to you, right? Think of us searching on popular sites like Amazon or Walmart, right? We want to find what we want immediately, and we will transact if it's relevant and meaningful to us. So this search bar really is a value bar that I think really needs to be reframed a little bit for companies.
Essentially, the search bar really is a listening tool for the audience. And I think, sometimes the business might think, well, the customers care about this thing. And then they realize, oh, we're getting all these searches for this. They care about something else that we didn't realize.
Exactly. And, with technology today, we can make that bar quite intelligent and useful for the business. So this takes me to a little bit more meat and depth behind search and search relevance, and specifically the types of capabilities companies should be looking for and understanding that they need as it relates to relevant search that powers effective Gen AI or generative answering, to be specific. So I wanted to go through each one of these, and if I need to clarify anything, please let me know. The first is having a hybrid unified index that is able to ingest and pull information from all of the different systems and applications an enterprise has today. And a unified hybrid index is able to do that from a keyword-based technique as well as vectors. So we talked about semantic search and vectors. So being able to do keyword-based search as well as vector-based search. In addition to that, you have extensive ranking and filtering options to make sure you have ways of boosting the most relevant content for end users. And next, and very related to that, are having the ability to have manual and auto-tuning options. Things like thesaurus or synonyms. Every enterprise is different, right? Every enterprise has their own product names, their own acronyms. I used to work for a big corporation. We had an acronym glossary, right? And so every enterprise needs the ability to manage and tune results to their domain-specific areas. Of course, we need to talk about security when it comes to AI, Gen AI, or enterprises in general. And if you think about it, again, enterprises have thousands of applications. Each of those applications has their own type of permission access controls. So how are you able to standardize and ensure only those who have access to your thousands of systems get the results that they should be able to see, and nothing more, right?
What interesting on that, and that you're saying possibly that the search box would bring up different results if you're a customer or an employee or administrator, and they would see different results.
Absolutely. And they should see different results. In addition to that, you have to think about the connectivity and siloed nature of enterprises. So having a system that has out-of-the-box connectors and native integrations to popular enterprise systems like Salesforce, Adobe, Sitecore, right? That helps you to be able to establish interoperability and to also augment those systems, again, with great unified search, AI-powered search. If I move to the right-hand side of the column, we then get into content freshness, right? Which was a big deal when it came to AI and Gen AI and it processing the most relevant information and resources. Think about how many new content, knowledge, documents, and data enterprises are creating on a daily basis. So systems need to be able to refresh, quickly to stay relevant to the business. This next point I feel like is super critical and strategic, and it's around giving the business control over the results. So, let's say you're a product business and you want to feature a certain high margin product, or maybe you want to feature an item where you have too much stock and you want people to buy it. Giving businesses the ability to manage or override AI and the results is absolutely critical to helping that business achieve their strategic business objectives. And we talked a little bit about the behavioral side, James, around AI that's able to learn and understand and track success on thousands and millions of data points. That's where behavioral AI models come in to positively reinforce the overall system, the overall generative AI system, right? And we didn't talk about it, but personalization, or that ability to use a person's real-time behavior, the things that they're clicking on in real time, plus their historical information, maybe it's past purchase orders, or past activities. The ability to use both of those to really offer real-time, in-session, personalized recommendations, whether that's content or products, again, brings a level of intelligence to help make that person successful and hopefully transact with you. Last but not least, it's the need for analytics and insights into your overall system performance. How do you know search is working? How do you know your AI models are working effectively? Being able to draw all of these insights and data together in a system in a closed loop manner to continuously improve really is what's going to make that difference in building a successful generative AI solution.
I think that last piece, the analytics and insights, it is as important as any on that list, and that companies do need to be looking at what the search results are and what it says about what the customers want.
Exactly. Beyond this, and that was a long list of features and capabilities, so thank you for enduring that with me. Beyond this, I also wanted to point out a few other differentiators for those of you really trying to assess, okay, why AI search, or what are, differentiators and that set a good or great platform across from an okay platform. And what I would say to that are the items that you see here. A great AI search platform is really going to do the heavy lifting for you. Here it says managed AI solution, but what this means is you have the power of many different AI models that are in an out-of-the-box approach, so you don't have to hire an army of data scientists, which many companies, can't really afford to do. You want a system that is closed loop, self-learning, reinforcing. We kind of discussed that in the last point, but having a closed loop system from front end to back end, continuously improving, is absolutely critical. We know enterprises are large, many departments, many different stakeholders. So having a system that lets you take a multi-use case approach for improving your website, maybe it's your intranet, maybe it's the service desk or sales team, having that flexibility to do that is important. Also, truly being agnostic when it comes to your user interfaces, the content you're processing, the applications you're working with. Oftentimes, the big, platforms that get invested into cannot work with content outside of their ecosystem. And so this is where, an AI search platform comes in to take that agnostic approach. Shouldn't matter where the content is, what system it resides in. I talked about business controls in the last slide. I want to emphasize this again. A system, is effective and powerful with all those capabilities I mentioned, in addition to giving the business the control to promote, override, and, achieve their business objectives, especially if you're a product company. It goes without saying the importance of enterprise scalability. You want a system that is enterprise grade, can grow with you. You don't have to worry about it's robust, basically built for the enterprise. And also, last but not least, here is best of breed technology, which we hear from companies all the time. They want to work with and buy from vendors that are going to be constantly innovating, staying up to par or ahead of standards, really trying to avoid that technical debt or tech lock-in. So hopefully this gives you an idea of other differentiators in addition to the features and capabilities I talked to on the last slide. I wanted to change gears here and actually talk about generative AI or generative answering in action. And what you can see here is actually one of Coveo's own customers, Xero, who is a worldwide accountancy software company. Xero's been a Coveo customer for the past 8 years or so, and they initially came to us to help improve their online support community. Here you can see it's Xero Central. So they use our AI to really help users find what they need, help them self-service, help them self-resolve. And they expanded over time even to use Coveo in the agent experience side. So if you think of yourself as a customer going online to get support on a product, ideally you want to be able to self-resolve and not have to call the help desk. But should you have to speak to the help desk, you want to make sure they know who you are. They have some idea of your online experience, the things you just went through to try and self-resolve. And you want them to be empowered to be able to help you solve that issue rather quickly. So that was our history and our story with Xero over the last 8 years or so. Mid last year, we did release our generative answering capability, and Xero was one of a few of our customers that decided to beta test, try generative answering on their own sites. And so you can see here, they actually try generative answering on that same community portal. So you can see someone is asking, how do I update my subscription payment details? And generative answering is giving them a question with steps, with the citations or sources of that information, and allowing them to give the system feedback whether that answer was helpful. So all great, important capabilities that, again, are helping to accelerate a customer's time on the site and their ability to be successful. You see some numbers on here. Those were the most impressive for us, which is by implementing the solution, Xero was able to increase the self-service resolution rate by 20%, meaning making customers 20% more successful or saving their time so that they find the answer quickly and can move on to the task at hand. In addition to that, the ROI they were able to experience was significant. Within 6 weeks, they were able to see a clear ROI from this generative answering solution, as well as reduce the average time to resolution for any calls headed to the service desk or help desk. So a lot of great success here. And this is on top of a solution that already was leveraging a few AI models. So this is now generative answering, providing leaps more in productivity and value added time to end customers.
Woody, a question on that. I'm curious. So this is Gen AI answering. Does that mean that it would go hand in hand with like straight retrieval kind of answering, or if you're using Gen AI answering, that's what you're using? How do they combine, or not?
It's a great question. We really see generative answering as another model. For us, it's actually our 11th AI model. But to your point, there are other types of AI models that would give you an answer, a direct one-to-one answer, what we could call as non-generative answer. We call that model smart snippets. I know others call it other things, but there are multiple methods or techniques that you can put into place. Generative answering is just one of those. So should Zero say, you know what, don't want to generate an answer, I want that direct answer in that knowledge article that is 10 pages long, there's models that can bring that one-to-one answer for an end user, and we offer that as well.
Right.
So hopefully you can see the power of generative answering when done right. And all of this would not be possible without all of those search foundations and capabilities that I mentioned. All of those search features and capabilities are necessary, and generative answering is built on top of that rich, robust set of features and capabilities. And when done right, you get great results. The other thing I just wanted to highlight here was, what we looked at was a generative answering in action on Zero's support website. But you can imagine generative answering can be on any full search page experience. It can also be within your service management application or your CRM search. And it can also exist within a bot-like experience. We have our own in-app product, or in-product experience is what we call it. And you can see generative answering in that real estate as well. So I share this to say, I mentioned earlier, being agnostic and having multiple use cases, multiple UIs is really important when you think about the fact that enterprises are catering to a variety of different stakeholders. So that flexibility really does matter there. When I just talked about this a little bit, James, but I thought it deserved to be highlighted a little bit more. And that's the fact that generative answering really is what I'll say is one of several search techniques. And what I mean by that is, if we look at the image here on the screen, generative answering is one, and there's two others that exist: lexical search and semantic search. Now, lexical search is just our basic keyword search, which many of us still use today. We don't always need a generative answer to get to, what we're looking for. Sometimes we do just want that document. Sometimes we want that link, right? Generative answering is not always needed. And then with semantic search, it's, going beyond keyword search and being able to understand what we meant when we only provide limited information into the search bar. But this whole category on the left-hand side, to me, is a bit reactive, meaning it requires a user to search, right? You have to search to find an answer. But we have models today that are more proactive and don't require a user to search. And those are recommendations models. Think about content recommendations, product recommendations. People like you also viewed. People in your function also read. These exist as well. And so my point here is there are multiple techniques that companies need to consider for their use case, for their enterprise. And while generative answering, of course, is one of the most exciting, it's not the only one that can be used. And it's not the only one that people want to use. Now, this gets me to a bit of what I was saying earlier, James, and that's that the reality today is that enterprises are a bit overloaded with a bunch of siloed platforms. And for those of you joining us, I'm sure you recognize these acronyms, everything from your core ERP to your content management systems, your marketing automation platforms, right? Each of these platforms are absolutely critical and important for that department. So very core systems and applications. But the reality is that your end user searching, whether they're an employee or a customer, they don't really care about those systems. They don't really care about where content lives, right? They just want to find the information they're looking for as fast as possible so they can get on with the task at hand. Furthermore, your backend team, your developers, your IT or systems managers, okay, they care a little bit more about these systems because they're managing and maintaining them, but they obviously want to be working with the best technology out there. They want innovative solutions. They want to figure out how to make these different platforms interoperable. And to that's where I say an AI search type platform really can bring a lot of value. On the front end, it's helping deliver a connected, intuitive, intelligent experience for end users. It's helping them find things across sites and systems. Again, for an end user, they don't need to worry about the details. They just want to find what they need, find and discover. But what if you could amplify and augment the systems you have in place today. The reality is the systems you see here, they've been there for a while. There's millions of dollars being invested into them. They're not going to go anywhere. But just because they're there doesn't mean that you can't breathe a new life into them and bring capabilities like unified search, AI recommendations, generative answering, all the things we covered before. These can be used to amplify your existing systems, but also to unlock the value that's stuck in them, right? To unlock the knowledge and information and make it accessible to others. And lastly, for your dev teams, you really want to future-proof their experience by future-proofing, your future-proofing your tech stack. You're helping your dev team upskill a little bit. You're amplifying your systems. You're allowing them to work with best-of-breed technology that, in a way, upskills them overall as well. And so these are the points that I think are in favor of introducing an AI search platform that really is going to connect, really going to amplify all these different platforms and improve the experience to your front-end users as well as your back-end employees. So really an overall win-win situation for all sides.
So, Juanita, are you saying that for an AI solution to be effective, it should need to be hooked into all those silos like ERP or CRM, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. I think my point here is that oftentimes companies think of these systems in silos and only purchase in siloed platform mentality, but
Right.
I was really thinking cross-platform, was really thinking cross-enterprise to bring the value and the richness there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And with that, I did want to just do a little overview of Coveo to help people understand the robustness of capabilities that go into an AI search and generative experience platform. And so what you can see is kind of working our way up, the connectivity layer, all those applications and systems in the enterprise, right? There needs to be a way of connecting them and unifying the access to that information securely so people can find what they need and really have that single source of truth across the enterprise. And there's many ways of doing that. We then get into our AI models, which, we talked about generative answering and we kind of mentioned a few others. But today we have over 10 models, actually 11 to be exact, distinct AI models that are in use by customers throughout the world today. And those models are behavioral, learning from users and making recommendations. They're personalization based. There's some that are LLMs that are non-generative, which I spoke about, smart snippets, as well as generative with generative answering. And then there's our front end side, right? How are you able to improve those experiences on your sites and within your applications? And that's what Coveo is doing every day for our customers, really bringing a robust portfolio of solutions and capabilities to improve experiences on your .com, to improve your commerce portals, service portals, intranets, and agent experience. So this just gives you an idea of, again, the robustness and capabilities that go into a platform like this. And the goal, again, is to help manage those information challenges and make that Gen AI effective. Again, without great search, you're not going to have great generative experiences.
So, Juanita, looking at the chart, it looks like I see the large language models down there. Is it correct if I'm thinking if a company's going to purchase Coveo, they of course are going to customize one of those large language models, or how would that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's many ways that different companies do this. I would say Coveo is more of a managed AI platform, which means we have a team of over 200 R&D data scientists that are honing our models for a horizontal use. So when you buy a Coveo platform, you get these 11 AI models out of the box. And for you to set it up, it's more of a few clicks and drags and drops than coding. So we do all of that for our customers. The large language models we use today, we do use OpenAI. We have a way to connect to them, but it's all secure within our platform, which is bought by our customers on a cloud native basis.
So we're not talking weeks of customizing a large language model.
Oh no, absolutely not. We've sort of refined our models to work with the enterprise knowledge and information And so a customer can get started rather quickly with our models. It could take them even a couple of days. All the main steps, I think, would be connecting your data sources. So knowing what systems you're really trying to unify access to, knowing what users you really want to improve that experience for. Is it your employees? Is it your customers on a website? And then, applying the models to your different search experiences. That's just as easy as that. So we can get complicated, we can get basic. I think we really try to give options for helping people get started quickly.
Good to know.
Yeah. And on that note, I think another, important question that comes up quite a lot is the build versus buy debate. This is in relation to, search platforms. It's definitely a hot topic for AI and Gen AI in general. I think everyone is figuring out the right approach for them based off of their business, but I wanted to just offer a few considerations. On the build side, I think it makes sense to build your own LLMs or generative solution if you have a large team of AI experts, right? And some of the largest, tech giants out there do. And so they're going to be building this themselves to incorporate into their solution portfolios. Also, if you're building AI or Gen AI as part of your core competency, let's say you have a custom financial application that is core to your business and how it operates, you might want to, build on your own and be a little less dependent on someone else for something that's very core to your business. If you're also just looking at a point solution, like one-off need, probably building on your own, something simple is okay. And if you're not thinking, enterprise-wide or don't have scalability concerns, build approach is probably good for you. Reasons to buy or consider an AI search platform. First and foremost would be, of course, if you have limited resources and especially limited AI expertise resources, which not a lot of companies can spin up, right? It takes time, domain expertise, a lot of investment to do that. So partnering with someone or working with a vendor is a good approach. I would also add in, if you want to avoid tech lock-in or technical debt. So a lot of companies today, right, they buy into an application, and depending on the vendor, whether they're enterprise grade, public, their roadmap, chances are they get stuck with technology that's eventually becomes outdated, isn't as modern, and that does slow companies down. So if you want to avoid tech lock-in and go to a more agnostic, right, best of breed provider, which we see here on the list as well, that's why you would go, third party. And also, last one I'll cover here is if you want an enterprise-wide solution, right? Again, I mentioned naturally enterprise behaviors are buying more siloed, more departmental, and that you can argue that has caused these data challenges to some extent. But if we want to start to resolve those data, challenges, those data silos, and thinking enterprise-wide and the ability to, make something usable cross-departmentally or horizontally is absolutely a good cause and a good reason to buy a solution rather than build it on your own.
Yeah, if I could speak for most companies, I think there's a sense of, we'd much rather buy than build because build creates its own headaches. But who knows? Every company out there.
Yeah, fair. There's a lot of debate on this one. But yeah, I think it's different for every business. So everyone has to decide what makes the most sense for them. So that we're getting near the end of our planned presentation. I did want to share just a couple of resources if you're interested in learning more. The first is a blog that I actually authored called Gen AI is Only as Good as Your Search. It goes into a little bit deeper it goes in a little bit deeper on the topics we discussed today. So if you want to give that a read, we'll drop the link here. And then we have a what I'll call a spring innovation release on March 27th. We call it Relevance 360. But this is where we showcase our latest innovations, where we are investing in. And we also hear from industry leaders. Excitingly, this time we'll have guests from Forrester and OpenAI to talk about search, generative answering, and the importance of relevance. So I'll drop the link and would welcome you all to join us. With that, James, wanted to thank you and thank those of you joining us today. I will now pass it over to you for any questions.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff on it. Absolutely. I have just a few questions, and I do invite the audience, please do input your questions, and we'll do our best to get back to them as soon as possible. Even after the day of the recording, please input your questions. But I was wondering, Juanita, all right, so say a company purchases Coveo. Is their data secure? Because certainly there's a certain data merging, is there not? So I'm concerned. What about the issue of data privacy?
That's a really great question. What I would say to that is we are a cloud native solution. And what's interesting about our platform is there's no data migration, right? So your data will always live within your systems, your core systems of engagement or record. But we are indexing and unifying the data that you tell us to process. And it's done through a private, secure cloud that our customers own and manage independently, right? So they're effectively buying us as a SaaS-based solution to operate. So it's absolutely secure. We uphold the highest security standards. We even have a HIPAA cloud. So when it comes to data privacy, we really take that seriously. And one thing I think I would like to call out is we also do early binding security, which means during this whole indexing process of when we are, processing and ingesting data into our cloud, we take permissions from those source systems, again, ensuring that people never get access to the things they're not meant to. So we definitely take security seriously.
An important issue to be sure. All right, what about setup? I mean, also concerned, could be weeks to set this up with the whole team, or what does it mean to set up the Coveo solution?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it really depends what your use case is. For example, I'm a big fan of our digital workplace solution and really helping improve the experience on intranets, right? And findability and helping employees find the right information to do their jobs. But, the intranet is one of those applications that is kind of owned and managed by multiple departments. So it gets complicated in terms of getting people to buy in. You have a variety of content on there. Even budgeting and decisioning gets very complicated. So I think, that's a more lengthy process only because our customers have to work a lot more internally with their different stakeholders. But when we look at a use case, let's say for a website, something as simple as improving, findability or discoverability on your .com, your website. While marketing typically owns the site, they own the budget, right? And they know their content mostly. There's fewer internal stakeholders to have to win over. And so getting started again is as simple as knowing who your audience is that's going to be searching, what's the content they'll be searching for, and then spinning that up within the Coveo platform, which we are constantly innovating to make it easy to use, to make business users self-sufficient. So there's less reliance on IT. So all that's to say is it's rather quick. I think it's more of the internal stakeholder management, depending on the use case, that makes things longer or more complicated.
Well, I guess on the same note, I mean, what if the platform's been up and running for 6 months or so, and suddenly the company has a whole new product line? They want to make sure that's part of the search results. Is that a few clicks, or how would I guess really I'm asking about maintaining it? What is the issue with maintaining it?
Yeah, I would say it's a few clicks to add a new data source or to ingest a new set of data. It's pretty quick, and then our users are typically maintaining it. The best ones are maintaining and learning and looking at those analytics, right, on a regular basis to make sure that people are finding what they need. And let's say there is a content gap. Let's say there's a no results search. Well, that's an indication that maybe you didn't ingest that data, which means you're not amplifying it with AI. So I think having those controls and insights help to really improve the experience.
Okay. What about the issue of running, and you talked about this a bit, but I'm not totally clear on this, the issue of running generative AI with the straight retrieval, with the other search ways, search technologies. Can a company tune that? Does it say we're all Gen AI, we're Gen AI mostly, but we do some straight retrieval? Or how does that work to combine all of that? Or is it all Gen AI?
It's a really good question. I would say today we have a couple of options. One is we actually offer a toggle box to turn it off from an end user perspective. So let's say you're searching on a site, and when you're searching, generative answering is working and processing, right? And let's say for you, you're like, I don't want generative answering. I want to just find the link or the document directly. As an end user, you can toggle it off so that you don't have to deal with generative answering. And over time, because Coveo does offer, keyword-based search, content recommendations, over time, the systems will get smarter. So they'll be able to tell like a 2-keyword search into the bar is probably not a generative answering type question. That's a basic direct retrieval question. So we don't need generative answering for that. But if it's a question that's, a longer form, something a little more complicated that involves comparisons or steps or setup, then the system will know, okay, that's a candidate for generative answering. From a business perspective, it's always up to them on when they're using generative answering, and they should really think about it because it's not cheap, right? There's a premium for generative answering. So you want to make sure you're using it in the places that are bringing value to your end users or your customers.
Interesting. Okay, this is really, really fascinating. Juanita, I think you said it. I learned a ton, and I want to thank our listeners today. And I also want to remind them that we welcome your questions, even if the day of the recording, we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. So please put your questions at any time. Juanita, thanks again.
Thank you.